What's up, everybody? How's it hanging? How's it happen? You guys notice this is Kevin from the Chord Progression Podcast, and today we're going to shine more light on the Canadian hardcore scene with Rob from the band Rust. What we talk about in this one is how important the Canadian hardcore scene is, how it has grown since the pandemic, and why it is something you definitely need to be looking into, along with Rust as well with their brand new song Face Down, and getting you ready for a brand new EP album release coming to you soon. You like Canadian hardcore? You like hardcore in general? You want to know where the next hotbed for hardcore is? It's right here on this podcast in Canada. Are you guys ready? Let's go! Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of the Chord Progression Podcast. When we had the band called The Northern on the podcast, they brought up something about the emerging scene that is the Canadian hardcore scene and how much great music is coming out of it. So I decided to go on a mission. I have to find out more about this scene, and I want to bring a spotlight to more and more of these incredible bands that are coming here. And this one was recommended to me by someone that's deep within that scene. They said, check it out, make it happen, and well, we're going to. Recently, they released a single called Face Down, which dropped at the end of September. And if you like hardcore music, you're going to like this one. And there's even an upcoming EP due out sometime early next year. I believe they said on Facebook. So I'm seeing a nod right there. So I know it's right. And we're going to jump into all this great stuff about hardcore music, the Canadian scene right now. So please welcome Rob from the band Rust to the podcast. So Rob, welcome to the Chord Progression Podcast.
Thank you very much, my brothers. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being on, man. It's a pleasure to bring a spotlight to this great Canadian hardcore scene that, I've been told a lot about already, but I know there's so much more to go into. So I want to jump into that literally right away. I know it's probably like, well, maybe we want to warm up a little bit, but no, I'm jumping in right away with this whole entire thing with the Canadian hardcore scene. So I want to get your take on it. Like, what essentially happened that made this scene grow to the way that it did and become such a big thing for a lot of people in especially Canada? Because I want to know more about it. I want to get more people to know about it. So I want to hear about the history about it from your perspective, especially from someone that's in it.
Well, I can kind of speak to the Eastern Canadian side. Western Canada's kind of got its own thing going on out there. That we have a guy, there's a mutual friend of the scene in general. His name is Spencer. He runs a Scoped Exposure podcast, and he's been documenting shows out west for goodness, like pre-pandemic. He's been doing it for a while. I think he did his 5 years. I think he's on his 6th year now or something like that. But he's been documenting like Western Canada and really kind of pushing that out there. And then Eastern Canada, I don't know, man, it's been weird. Like pre-pandemic, it was kind of like there wasn't really like a lot of hardcore bands. There wasn't really a whole lot of the shows themselves were just, I don't know, they weren't particularly great. It was just like kind of like a lull, I guess, almost. And then the pandemic hit, and that kind of changed everything because none of us could really do anything. Rust ended up keeping pretty busy. We were able to do like some other stuff. We dropped a promo, we did a music video, we did like little things whenever we could. And then when it was kind of okay to start doing shows again, we jumped into it right away, and we were like, all right, shows are back, let's throw a show. So then we threw a show, and then like people just started coming out, and we were just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, this is crazy. Like pre-pandemic, if you had a show of like 40 kids, you were dope. But coming out of the pandemic, you were getting like, 150, 200. Like kids were packing out because I guess they just missed hardcore that much. And over the pandemic, it just gave birth to so many sick bands that like when shows actually did come back, it was like, all right, like everybody wanted to get out and kind of like, hey, this is what we did over the pandemic. And it's been so sick. It's been like an insane amount of fun. And we've been able to do a lot. Like there's a lot of really cool bands that have come out. And then over the pandemic as well, there's a band relative to there's a Hamilton band called Gavel, and their bass player Jordan and I, he plays bass in another band called Deadly Game. Him and I have been friends for a really long time, and we kind of started talking about the idea when shows came back, like what if we could kind of get in on this and like contribute to our community and kind of help out any which way we can. So we ended up forming Steel City Hardcore. So we actually promote and throw our own shows in Hamilton, and it's been a year. It's actually going to be a year like this week. It'll be a year since we started doing it, and the reception is absolutely fucking cranked. Like we've been able to throw some amazing shows. We've been able to get a lot of really cool bands from the States and like local bands here, showcase all the local talent. Like we've been able to really kind of help do whatever we can to help kind of push this scene out and show people like this is what it's all about. Like this is what's going on up here. Like come up here, come play Hamilton, come check us out. Like we've been we've been grinding pretty hard at that, and it's only helped everybody else flourish. Like now Barrie is starting to get a scene flourishing, Brampton's trying to kickstart their scene again, London's trying to get theirs back up, Windsor's trying to get theirs back up, and like it's like this whole thing has just kind of come together where now like there's no, I don't know if there was ever like a rivalry or anything like that, like pre-pandemic, but now it's definitely just all about community where everybody just wants to help each other. It's like, hey, there's this new band putting out of Windsor. All right, well, let's put them on. There's a new band coming out of London. Let's put them on. Let's, everybody's trying to play with everybody. Everybody's trying to showcase what they got going on. And then the bands from the States now are starting to catch on too. Like we've made a lot of really cool friends out of the States that come up here now. And they genuinely just love coming up here because the vibe here has just it's been absolutely insane. It's been so wild for hardcore. It's insane.
So, I mean, from that perspective, I mean, kind of just in the grand scheme of things from where I was taking it, it's, pre-COVID, it was there was not that much going on, but then all of a sudden COVID hit, everyone was put under lockdown, restrictions were there of what you could and what you couldn't do. No, from the US and, hearing about what was going on in Canada, I know the restrictions that you guys were put under were much more strict than what we had. So maybe some of that animosity, maybe some of that just like anger, that aggression was being built up helped the hardcore scene. When kids were able to go back to shows, they wanted to get something that was more aggressive, that amplified and really resonated with their feelings at the time. And then what you guys were able to do was, okay, we're seeing this happen, really make the whole entire scene about it, really make that supportive piece about it so that all these other places can start growing as well, and everyone wants to go there to see, especially the spot in Eastern Canada as the spot to go to for when you want to go play hardcore shows and really start to get that Kickstarter feel, really is like the hub of it all. But the key thing that you said is, not necessarily about competition, but more about community. And that's something that when you take a look at some of these other like localized scenes across the world, and specifically I have to go with the Australian metal scene. Why are so many great bands from Australia, all these metal bands from Australia coming out and just absolutely kicking ass with all this great, all this great quality, but also all this great backing from the country, because they're all getting behind it. They're all supporting their local bands. They're supporting them from local on, so that when they get to the point where they can travel to Europe, travel to North America, there's so much backing already around them where it's easily viable for them to do it, and the quality is there. That's what essentially you guys are doing right now, where all these other scenes and all these different cities in Eastern Canada, they're starting to grow. Everyone's going to want to go there because they know the quality of the hardcore music is going to be there, and the support is going to be there to help elevate all these bands that are coming from there, and bands are going to be coming to that scene to play and become a part of it as well, and just keep growing it in the end.
100%. No, for us, it's always been, I mean, speaking for like Steel City Hardcore or even like Rust or my other band Dial Only, any bands that I'm in, or any, for me personally, it's always been about community, because hardcore for me has always been like a place where like it's always been like a safe space for me, where it's like I'm old as shit. I'm 38. So I'm considered like, up there in terms of like, and when I found hardcore in the 90s, it was like a safe space. It was like, this is where you go. Like you have all these feelings, you have, this certain way about you, people don't understand you, you have a place. And now more than ever, I feel like coming out of COVID, especially, I think kids especially needed that place where they're coming out of a situation that they really didn't understand, because none of us understood it. I mean, at the end of the day, like nobody really understood what we were coming out of when we came out of COVID, and everybody needed that place. So being able to like have this music and have this outlet, but also be able to like give back to the community, but also make the community a part of it. Like when it comes to Steel City Hardcore, it's not just Jordan and I. We have friends of ours that want to document the shows. We have friends of ours that like to take pictures, so they come and shoot the shows. We have friends that do zines. So, they can set up shop. We've thrown flea markets where we've been able to showcase like all local artists, where not necessarily catering to hardcore. It's like, you make pants, fucking come set up a booth and fucking, come enjoy a day of hardcore and also showcase like what you guys do. Like, we try to give back to the community as much as possible, because that's what the community has given us, essentially.
I was going to even ask you, especially what you were talking about with hardcore being a safe space for you, especially what you found in the 90s, coming out of the pandemic, was that going to be a major piece that really helped kickstart the scene once again, get it to the point where it is? But you pretty much answered that question, and it makes a lot of sense, especially from kids that are in a younger perspective that are just getting into this stuff. Because, think about it, if you're 18, 19, 20 years old, and you're just starting to get out there in the adult world, even if you're in your mid-20s as well, you're still trying to figure it out, and you get thrown into this pandemic. You have no idea what to expect. You didn't plan for this. You didn't put yourself in this position. Everyone else is putting you in this position. The government's putting you in this position. The world's putting you in this position. And all these different feelings and emotions that you're having, that you're able, possibly able to have, maybe not able to express because of, what's going on in the world, what's going on in social media, certain things you can and can't say because you don't want to make, you don't want to end up saying something, someone takes it the wrong way, and now you've got a huge mess on your hands. How do you let a lot of that aggression out? How do you get something where you feel like it's safe to just basically be yourself in that space and express those emotions? Once shows came back, all of a sudden, everyone's going to these shows. I mean, even the US, all these shows are absolutely packed. Some of these pits that I've been in are absolutely ridiculous. And it's kind of that same reason. We're all just happy to be back there, and we're still just letting loose. And everyone's able to be themselves at these shows. Everyone's able to just be happy, just open up and be free in a way. And especially when it comes to all that aggression in a hardcore scene, I mean, it just makes so much sense where people are just gravitating towards it because they feel it's safe for them to be there, and it allows them to express those emotions that they're feeling in a way that everyone else is able to express them in the same manner, but also be supportive at the same time.
Absolutely. It's been crazy, like, especially for, like, speaking for Steel City hardcore shows that we have thrown. Like, we've had, Buried Alive come from Buffalo. We've had our friends in D Block come up from Detroit. We've had like a variety of different, US bands come up here. And we've also like had our own bands and had our own scene and like had our own thing kind of going on. And the crazy thing about it is that our shows are, I mean, let's not beat around the bush. They're violent. It's violent music. It's aggressive music, and it's time to, get out there and get everything you got going out. We have yet, I'm going to knock on fucking wood and everything else I can knock on, but we have yet to have any kind of pit beef, any kind of instance where, like, you know what I mean? When people come to these shows, they know exactly what they're coming into. And to see that sense of community carry on inside, like somebody falls, you pick them up. Somebody gets hurt, we've had people, we've had injuries happen, obviously, because it's, their shows. But like the second something like that happens, the amount of people that gravitate around, the situation itself. And it's just, how can we help? How can we, like it's been absolutely insane to see something like that. Whereas like, the days of old, I guess, as you can say, wasn't always like that. It was, fights were a regular thing, and, certain things were just, I don't know. It's like a breath of fresh air almost in the hardcore scene right now, where it's like, you can go here and you can dance your little heart out and know that you're not going to get judged, or know that, somebody's not going to put you down. If you smack somebody by accident, no one's taking offense to it. Everybody's there for the same reason, ultimately. And it's been absolutely wild to see. It's been so sick.
That's a huge positive as well, coming from, before, where, of course, the show's aggressive. Yeah. So there's going to be violence that happens in the crowd. Yes, because that's just what you expect. But compared to where it was before, where it is now, I mean, now there's this idea where people know what they're getting into, especially from a newbie perspective. All of a sudden, you go to the show, you can stand on the side and you can see what's going on. So you get a taste of what everyone is like. And all of a sudden, it's like, maybe it's a little bit too violent for your taste. That's fine. That's fine. You don't have to jump into the pit. You can be off to the side and still enjoy the show. No one's going to judge you. All that matters is the fact that you're at the show, you're having a good time. And if you're in the pit and you're having a blast and you end up getting smacked in the face, it's especially if you're in that scene, you already know that this is potentially going to happen. And if you accidentally smack someone in the face, again, it's not going to be anything with that there's beef. If someone falls down, of course, the golden rule is if someone falls down, you pick them back up. If someone gets hurt, you go and help that person right away, because the last thing we need is we know stuff like that's going to happen. The last thing we need is serious injuries to happen. We don't need anybody to fight or anything. We just need everyone to have fun, and we know exactly what we're getting into. Newbies know what they're going to be able to get into when they go to one of those shows, but they also know that they're going to feel accepted when they go to that show, because no matter how you're enjoying the show, you're going to enjoy it, and people are going to be happy about it.
100%. Like I have 2 daughters that are 8 and 5, and their favorite place in the world is coming to a hardcore show. I bring them to shows as often as I can, and they love it. They've just, they love the dancing. They like, my 8-year-old has like the craziest fucking 2-step in the world now. And it's like, it's just so sick to see that, like, but even they see it. Like, they're like, when they come to a show, I mean, everybody, like, it's so welcoming. Like, it's like, they're like, they probably have more friends in hardcore now than I do. Like, it's crazy. Like, they see, like, I've always wanted to show them how important this scene is and how important the community is, because it's not so much like the music is, like, obviously the music's sick, but it's the sense of community and the sense of friendship that comes, that I want them to see, that, like, no matter what they're going to go through as they get older and as they go through life, I hope they remember this place in time as like a space where they knew they could go, where like they were just them. Like, they can go and run around, no problem. When they see the dancers start coming, they know to get out of there. They know, you know what I mean? Like, but like the way that people make them feel when they're there, they are so comfortable being in that situation, because not a single person, everybody's there for the same reason, and it's all community and family related. We just want to, everybody gets together, we just want to have a good time, and then we just want to go home. And it's something that, like, I hope I can, like, my kids take with them. And like some of our other friends in the scene, they'll bring their kids now as well. They've started bringing their kids, and it's like everybody's walking away where their kids are just like, that was really cool, I really enjoyed that, everybody was so nice to me.
And I'll say your kids are end up becoming, like hardcore celebrities in Canada by the time they're like 9 and 10 years old at this point.
They're just dope. They just they just love, I brought them to their first show a couple years ago. I guess just coming out of the pandemic, I brought them to their first show, and they just, after they saw that one thing, they were just like, can we go again? Okay. So I'll take them again. And they feel good about it. I don't know. And they like the music too, but I mean, that's just a bunch of screaming and yelling and breakdowns. So, I mean, what's not to love?
Yeah, what's not to love? I mean, any chance I get to go into a pit, I'm like, I gotta make it happen. I see that pit open up, I gotta go there. But from that perspective alone, like, especially what your daughters are seeing, what other people in the scene, what their kids are seeing, it's all about, just the family vibe that we get from there, where everyone in there, sure, society might not like some of the stuff we do. Society might not accept the music that we enjoy because they see it as too heavy or too screamy or weird or whatever it might be. But when we get there, you're free to basically be yourself, and you're free to express that, and people are going to be supportive of that, especially when it comes to the kids as well. It's, we see some of the big dudes in the pit, or the people that are swinging, having a blast, especially for the hardcore shows. But all of a sudden, it's, they'll come to the kids and they'll be the nicest people in the world, because it's all about that family. It's all about that perspective. I know a lot of people that I know, especially my friends that aren't into this stuff, they don't understand why it's like, okay, why am I going to like 50 shows a year? Why am I always getting to pits, potentially getting beat the fuck up if I feel like it, or just going crazy? Well, it's because when I go there, I run into 20, 30 people in those pits consistently, from all different walks of life, from different parts of the country, from different backgrounds, anything. And it's like seeing it's friends, it's family. It's like you're seeing people that you just enjoy being around all the time. I'll go to music festivals. I went to one in Virginia. I went to one in Kentucky, and I'd seen people in the pit I hadn't seen in like a year, and everyone still recognizes each other. We might not remember each other's names, but we remember each other's faces, and that's all that you need to be like, hey, what's going on, my guy? And all of a sudden you're happy as all hell. You're hitting each other in the pit, having a blast. If one of you gets knocked down, that other person is probably gonna be the first person coming at you to pick you right back up, making sure you're okay, and just send you back on your way. Like, that is the thing.
100%. I mean, the friendships I've been able to make through hardcore have been, I mean, I've got lifelong friends because of playing crazy music. You know what I mean? Like, and like, by no means is our scene perfect. I mean, you
Mhm.
know, nothing's without its issues. I mean, to say that, like, everything that's going on here is perfect and whatever, it's actually, it's absolutely not true. Like, nothing's without its issues, but for the most part, the ideals are there, I think. And I mean, the same thing, like, as accepting and as communal as it is, I mean, the flip side to that is someone's acting like an asshole, they get put in place right away. You know what I mean? Like, there's no tolerance for that kind of bullshit, which is also fantastic, because it also, like, again, like, it teaches the kids that are just coming into this, or the kids that are just coming, that are just finding this, or even, like, bringing little kids or anything like that, whereas, like, it's teaching them, like, this is, like, sacred almost, whereas,
Mhm.
like, nobody can hurt you in this bubble, and if anybody tries, you know what I mean, like, it's been, but, like, the friendships that I've been able to make and connections I've been able, it's been, I've, like I said, lifelong friendships just through crazy music, and just having, one mutual interest that just spawns into, 10-15 year relationships of people where I still see them and I'm like, remember that time, or whatever. Like, it's been absolutely mind blowing. But it's, again, it all comes back to the sense of family and community, right? Like, if you build, like, when you have a strong foundation to build on, which I think coming out of the pandemic, we really had, like, a solid chance of doing, to see that actually happen in a communal sense, and to see every scene flourish from here to, from Eastern Canada to Western Canada down to the States, down, like, I think everywhere has been, like, there's bands that come up here from the States now that wouldn't normally, I don't think, pre-pandemic would have really kind of looked at, because it would have been like, well, there's not really much of a scene going on up there, so, like, we'll just wait and go the next time or whatever. Now it's like they want to come because they can see, like, not only are the shows sick here, but the bands are incredible. The bands popping out right now are insane. It's so sick to see. I'm Every week, it seems like almost like every week there's somebody else dropping like a 2 song promo, and I'm like, let's go, let's get it. I want to hear them all.
It's like I want to hear them all, and I want to hear everything you got, and I just want to have this keep coming. But I mean, what you said basically makes a lot of sense. Where once the pandemic sort of broke and shows were able to come back, you guys had the ultimate opportunity for the scene to focus in on the overall, like, the family vibe and the family value that get puts behind it when it comes to feeling like, you can be accepted, feeling, you have a place where you can go that is a place where you can feel free to be yourself, all of that. And also, it's something where the pit will teach you life lessons. It'll teach you about friendship. It'll teach you about communication. It also teach you accountability for your actions, because if you're doing something stupid or if you're hurting people, the pit will come after you. And, it's like the pit will govern itself. It's like hockey in a way, where if you mess with somebody, someone's going to come and cross check you from the side, and you're going to learn not to do that again.
Oh,
There's all these life lessons you can learn just from a mosh pit. But especially with a lot of people coming out of the pandemic, find a place where you can feel comfortable, express a lot of those feelings, and also a lot of that aggression. But also, if you're being stupid, you're gonna have that accountability come your way. You'll learn a lot about life, and it's something that you never forget. You're able to go forward with it, actually having a lot more confidence in yourselves, just because the way that you guys cultivated the hardcore scene up there.
100%. Yeah, I agree fully.
And I mean, I'm not sure if you guys could have done it any better, especially the way that's coming up. And I got to ask you about this. So if you could, I mean, you're promoting shows, you're putting on shows. Since the pandemic, since the scene really took off, what is your favorite show memory since the pandemic that you guys have either been a part of, or anything that you remember from the scene? Because I love me good story times.
Oh my God, where do I start? That's a 3-hour podcast on its own. There's been personal moments that have been like, I've, you know, I've been very fortunate. Russ has been very fortunate to hit some personal accolades that we had, coming out of the pandemic. We've been able to play with some bands that we never thought we would ever get a chance to play with. So that's been really cool. And then the friendships we've been able to make with bands, like, we never, you know, people we never thought we would ever cross paths with. Now all of a sudden, like they're homies with us. That part's been crazy. Um, from a show perspective, like from the shows that have been going on around here, especially, I mean, Steel City's been able to throw some pretty banging shows. Probably, I think the first show that we threw will always be like super special to me. So when we decided to do Steel City and we launched it, we did. It was an all local show, and it was at this little skate park venue that we had. And I mean, the cap there, it might have been, I don't know, maybe 100 people, maybe. And we had 300 kids show up to it. It was like it was absolutely insane. Um, if you go on the Steel City Instagram and kind of scroll down, there's actually like highlight video from that show, and it was the craziest night. And it was insane to see, like, it was dope to have a show that sick, because like that place has now been shut down. So like the chance of that ever being recreated again will never happen in a spot like that. So that's kind of cool to be able to kind of hold that record. But the fact that that many people came out to a locals only show, and I mean, it was Rust, Gavel, Die Alone, and then we had a band from Montreal called Shutaway come up and play their first time here. And then we had Spirit of Vengeance, a band called Just Right, and a band called Entice. That it all they all played their first sets that night. So not only was it like stacked with locals, but it was like, all right, well, here's a couple of bands that you guys know. Here's a band from Montreal. We got to show them some love. And then here's 3 brand new bands you guys have never heard of before. And whew, it was the greatest night. Honestly, like, you couldn't have asked for a better night. It was the craziest thing ever.
That is absolutely insane. Where you get a 100 cap venue, you got 300 kids showing up for a locals only show. That is something that, especially for your first promotion, that is something that is incredible, to say the least. I mean, there's plenty other adjectives you could use to describe it, but just look at it. Just go to a thesaurus. I almost messed that up. Go to thesaurus, look at the word incredible, and just see what happens. You can explain all of that with that show right there. And I will be putting the link to the Steel City Instagram in the description of the podcast, so everyone can go check it out, and make sure you go follow it as well to pump it up even more. So, woo!
But yeah, no, that was crazy for a locals only show. It was crazy. And then after that, like, we just kept packing. Like, the shows just kept getting better and better. We've been able to have some really cool bands. When we had Buried Alive and Chokehold play in Hamilton, and that was really cool. That was really special. That was really cool. Both Scott from Buried Alive / Terror and Chris from Chokehold came, and they sang a Hatebreed cover with Russ that night, and that was really cool. And yeah, like, it was really, like, we've been able to do some really cool things. Like, it's been dope. And then it's cool to see, like, bands from up here now. Like, Hamilton's kind of carved out its own niche for bands, where like we have bands like Fight on Sight, we have Gavel, we have Built on Blood. There's a lot of bands coming out of Hamilton now that are kind of paving their own way, and they're being it's like, it's no longer like, bands from Toronto, where like I feel like bands now, they've kind of been able to, like, we have Reality Tonight out of Niagara. Like, they claim Niagara, they rep Niagara. We have Mile End from Brampton, they're Brampton all the way. We have Bad Bet from Hamilton, and they rep Hamilton, and all, like, the slate of bands that I just mentioned. There's a lot of really cool bands that are coming out now that are just, they're not being necessarily, like, they're welcomed into like the Toronto hardcore scene now. They're welcomed into, like, we've all been fortunate enough to be able to push the community as hard as possible, to the point where it's like, anybody that tried to ignore us, you can't now. There's so many of us now that, like, you just can't ignore us. So, like, one way or the other, you're gonna have a Hamilton band in your fucking repertoire somewhere. And we've been really fortunate enough to be able to do that, and that's been like a huge highlight too of even the shows that we've thrown. Like, we always try to, every Steel City show, we always try to put, make sure there's Hamilton talent on there, where it's a new band playing their first show, or we're always trying to push our local scene as hard as possible. Even when we get like, especially when we get the bigger shows, we try to push our local scene as much as possible.
And that makes a lot of sense. You're trying to support music in any way you can, and when you get a bigger act to come in and headline a show, kids are going to be excited about it. Kids are going to want to be there for it. So if you're able to help out your local scene by helping put and promote a local band that's going to be on the show, it's going to just help out the scene as a whole, because you're showing that family aspect. You're showing that we're all in this together. Because if this scene succeeds, we all succeed. And why wouldn't you want to be a part of that? It makes so much sense, and it takes away this, like, the petty types of competition that can happen going forward, where, yeah, might be you're a band that, that's in the Canadian hardcore scene, and there's a big show that's going on, and you just don't get put on the bill. You're probably going to the show anyway. You're probably having a blast it, because that it's not that you weren't good enough. It's, that, maybe you just weren't the band that was going to be put on that night. The next big show, though, you're probably going to be the one that gets on it.
You know what? We've never, I mean, personally, I've never, like, when it comes to, like, my bands, I've never really, like, I don't, anyone that gets put on something, to me, is a win. Doesn't necessarily have to be my bands, doesn't necessarily have to be, you know what I mean? As long as our local scene is getting some recognition for anything that they're doing, every band that's around here bust their ass. And they work hard for it, and they deserve it. So, like, to me, there's never been a competition. There's never, like, one band's doing better than another or anything like that. It's like, if this band's popping right now, all you want to do is just do this. Yo, I'm so fucking stoked that you guys are popping right now. That's it. I just want to see everybody pop. That's it.
The mentality of a rising tide raises all ships. One band starts doing well. All right, let's promote them. Let's applaud them. Let's get them continuing on, because then the scene's going to continue to get more recognition. More hardcore bands are going to start coming to the area, as they already are. And all the bands that are going to be around there, people are going to start looking to this area as, okay, what's the next big hardcore band that's going to come out? What's the next big thing that's going to come out? Because the quality is going to come out. It's going to become something like the Australian metal scene. Whenever a band from Australia comes over to the US, it's like, alrighty, this is going to be good. We got to go see this shit. That's going to be the same thing with the scene you guys are cultivating. Of course, may it take a little bit more time? Yes, but you guys are definitely on the path there. So looking ahead over the next couple of years, what do you expect the scene to turn into? Like, what's the hope, and what's the, not necessarily the hope, but what's the goal? Because hope just means that this is what you want to have happen. A goal means that this is what you want to have happen, and there's a plan in place to make it happen.
I think the main focus and the main goal, like, personally, as long as I can keep doing this, and as long as I'm able to do this, I just want to focus as much attention on Ontario hardcore as I possibly can. I just, in any way, shape, or form that I can help do it in any kind of way, like, I think that the scene here is thriving so much, and there's so many amazing people doing so many amazing things. And it's not just, not just bands alone, but even, like, content creators. There's some amazing videographers, like, one of my best friends, David Praff, he has been crushing it in terms of being, like, the things that he's been able to do, and, the bands he's been able to shoot, and everything he's been, like, he just does insane work. And I mean, you got to shed light on the content creators as well, the guys that are doing the videos, or the people that are doing the videos, the people that are taking pictures, the people that are doing zines, the people that are doing tapes, the people that are trying, like, the hardcore scene as a whole deserves as much recognition. Because I don't know, like, I feel like, in a way, we almost have to work kind of harder than some of the other places, you know what I mean? Because, like, in the States, it's kind of easy. You kind of, if you're a hardcore band, like, I've seen local bands in the States that are better than most bands, new bands up here. Like, I mean, it's just, I feel like in the States, it's a lot easier to kind of break out. Whereas in Canada, we struggle a little bit harder with being able to do that. And I think we're slowly getting there. I would like to see it really thrive a bit more. Like, we've been able to have, they kind of started doing, they've done it 2 years in a row now. Some homies out here, up here, Eastern Canada, Western Canada, they kind of came together and they threw Hold Your Ground Fest. And that's been, they've done it 2 years in a row now. And it's been pretty dope. And it's again, it's helping bring some eyes up here, and whatever it takes to get eyes up here, so people start recognizing like the amazing pool of talent that we have up here. Period. I think is that's definitely the goal. I mean, the wish is that we could get to a point where we have our own, a la like Furnace Fest, or what I mean. Like, it would be
Mhm.
cool to see some more fests up here kind of pop off a little bit. And I know Western Canada is trying to do the same thing as well. So I mean, I think we all have like this, we all have this goal in place between Western Canada, Eastern Canada, where we just want hardcore in general to get a showcase to be like, hey guys, we're here too.
Yeah, it's even the guys that are like split up and have that Western East part just based on demographic, based on how big the country is. Your goals still remain the same, which is something that is going to be imperative to the success going forward. Continue to bring a lot of the support that a scene like this needs to pop off so that, again, you guys get to the point where I'm always using the Australian metal scene as a huge example of this, because that's kind of like the point I think you guys definitely want to get to, where everyone always looks at what's going on in Canada for the hardcore stuff. Like, okay, what band's coming out next? What's going to be the next big thing? So that all the bands there have a much better chance at making those dreams and those goals come to fruition. Similar to kind of like you said, the US might have an easier chance at it because of the visuals that are on there, because of some of the abilities that you have, but nothing's going to be better than having this just embedded idea of quality and support that the Canadian scene can have. And over the next couple of years, you guys keep building up on that, keep putting the focus in on that. Hell, just by doing this, like, I want to help put focus on this stuff. So now we're doing it right here, man. I mean, we're going to help promote we're going to help promote it any way we can. I almost tongue tied myself there, but we have to correct it because I want to make sure it is said.
Oh, I appreciate you, brother. That's definitely, I mean, that's the main focus here. Is hardcore itself has been, hardcore is amazing, and hardcore deserves to be, recognized. Like, it's really cool to see bands now, like, you got like Knocked Loose, and you got Train, and you got Turnstile, and bands like that. You know what I mean? Like, the focus is now coming back towards heavy music and hardcore in general. Like, even look at Parkway Drive. Parkway Drive is one of the biggest bands ever. Wouldn't necessarily call them a hardcore band anymore, but I mean, they still have those traditional values and those views, and what they've been able to accomplish. I remember seeing them their first time in Canada, and it was a very small club show, and it was absolute mayhem. And yeah, like, it's really cool to see, and it's really, the main focus is just trying to showcase Canadian hardcore, period.
I think especially a band like Knock Loose is going to be one that really helps put a lot of stock in the scene over the next couple of years going forward, because it's something where, I mean, they're playing shows. I've seen play headline shows in front of 1,000+ people. They're on tour with Motionless in White right now as like the direct support to them, and their show. And not gonna lie, I was at one of those days, and Knock Loose was definitely the one where the crowd was the most into it. Like, even though, like, we had Alpha Wolf, we had After the Burial right before him, so of course we were into it. But when Knock Loose went on, it was something completely different. Motionless in White goes on. Was the crowd still into it? Of course, it was Motionless in White. Were they into it as much as Knock Loose though? Not a chance. Not a chance. But you're all seeing Knock Loose, like, especially here in the States. You're seeing them perform at places like Coachella and Lollapalooza, where this kind of music does not necessarily even exist. But even people in the, like, that are in pop culture, like pop music, more on the mainstream side of things, they're getting into this because of something like this. So it's okay, where is this going to go next? Where's the focus going to go on? Turnstile's another great band that helps put a lot of eyes on the scene as well. Now, listen, you got Kubla Khan coming as well. You've got everybody in the Canadian hardcore scene that's like, hey, this is going to be the spot. Let's make this happen. And we got to make sure that it is the spot that gets seen, because then now there's the hub. Now there's the place that we know where shit's going down. We know where quality is coming from, and we know where we want to focus in on our hardcore music, because it's just good stuff.
Oh, it's been amazing. And I also got to shout out the Montreal hardcore scene. Montreal right now, I mean, when you're kind of looking, I mean, to me, out west, you basically have like Alberta, which I think has got a really thriving scene right now. Vancouver's got a great scene that's thriving right now as well. And then over here, you basically have like down here, the GTA, and then you have Montreal out in Quebec. That is absolutely. I mean, they threw a locals only fest last year, sold it out, 500 people, I believe, and it was all local bands. It was a 2-day fest, all local bands, all you know, and it was the greatest time of my life. It was so sick to see that many people come together to support their local scene, and it's like, all right, Ontario, you're next. Like,
Yep, Ontario, you're next, and Steel City Productions, you're the one that's gonna be putting it on.
I don't know about that. I mean, maybe.
If you're not the one putting it on, you're definitely gonna have your hand in it at some point to help promote it. I know you guys are gonna do that.
Oh, we're definitely gonna fucking be there. I promise you that. But yeah, I don't know. It's just yeah, it's this whole thing coming out of it, like the last year and a bit, like the last year has been just completely surreal for hardcore in general.
So outside of just hardcore in general, I want to talk about you specifically now with Russ. So the past like year and a half with just the way the scene has popped off, what has it done for you guys as a band? Specifically just Russ now. I want to make sure I shed some light on what you guys are doing too, not just the scene in general.
Oh, I appreciate that. So Russ, basically, yeah, we came out of the pandemic. We played a couple of really cool shows, and then we ended up we brought our friends from D Block down in Detroit. We brought them up here, and we brought some friends of ours from out west called Plead. We brought them out here, and we did a little run together, and the run actually was extremely successful. And then we dropped our record World Upside Down, and then from then it's just kind of been like this crazy trajectory in general where like we've just been fortunate enough to be able to do a lot of really cool shit. Like we got to go to Montreal for our first time this year, and we've been back a few times since. We've been able to go to places that we've never been able to go to before. We've been able to play some insane shows with insane people, insane musicians. Like it's just, and that's locally, locally, internationally, whatever. Like just in general, we've been able to do some really cool shit. And now we're on the verge of being able to, we have a new record that's going to come out early next year. We're just finishing that up now, and we just dropped the Face Down single, and like that's been popping. I don't know, it's just been, this band has been very fortunate.
Very fortunate is one way to put it, and especially with the new record you guys get coming out. If it's anything like that Face Down single, dear God, this is going to be one hell of a record, man. That's all I can say. We're looking forward to. I'm like, after listening to Face Down, going through the song, I'm like, okay, hardcore is not necessarily fully like my thing. Do I enjoy the music? Yes. Is it fully my thing though? No, I'm more of a metalcore punk rock kind of guy. But that listening to it, I'm just like going through the whole entire thing. I'm just sitting there thinking, God damn, this is high quality hardcore. Holy shit.
Appreciate that. I appreciate that. In my opinion, I don't think Face Down's the strongest song on the record. So, I mean, there's still some goodies to come out of that.
I mean that's insane because listening through Face Down, it was like right away just the way the riff was built, the way it was going. I'm like, are they mixing hardcore with more just like sludge metal, sludge rock, melodic feel? I'm like, where the hell is this coming from? But the way it all flows together, the way it puts together the song, the way the pacing is done throughout the whole entire thing, how it's kind of like an interesting feel where it's like you get to a point where it's like the pacing, it's like it starts out kind of slower, picks back up, and then it goes reverse, slower pace, but it hits heavier towards the end. So that amped up energy is still felt even as you're going more of a melodic pace, but it's still hard hitting, smash and grab kind of style. Adding that sludge feel to it, but just unleashed, especially at the end of it. It just, God damn, I'm like, this is good hardcore right here. You got to be fucking kidding me.
Very much appreciated, brother. That's awesome. Thanks for saying that.
Yeah, I mean, I've listened to it. It was the day we were originally supposed to record this. I was listening to it like maybe 10 times before we even started. Today that we recorded, I probably got through it 5 times before we jumped on. I'm just enjoying this. It's a song where, especially for someone who's not as big into hardcore, I want to keep listening to it. I want to keep getting into it because of the way it's built, the way it's constructed. And if you're going to the gym and whatnot, you're trying to hit a PR and it's like, listen to some hardcore because this is going to amp up your energy. Face Down is going to be one of those songs that's going to help you get to that point.
I appreciate that. We like the song. It was fun to make. It's going to be on a record. We think the record's kind of cool. So, I mean, yeah, it's crazy to hear, it's crazy when you put something out. Like I'm the one that's like, whenever we drop something, I'm always like, fuck, no one's gonna like it. Like I'm just that guy where I'm just like so critical, like because I'm like, man, I hope people like it. Like, are they gonna like it? Is it like, did we set out to do what we wanted to do? Like, and I mean the answer is obviously yes, because we write things, the way we write them.
Mhm.
But to hear the feedback come back where it's like, this is what we heard, and it's like, well, that's kind of what we were trying to do and be more mindful of. Like, I mean, I think the goal with this record this time was we wanted to go harder, but not necessarily sacrifice kind of what we've been doing prior either. Like, there was key elements that we really wanted to kind of amp up on, like, like the breakdowns, the sludgy parts, the riffs, as it were, that we've been trying to incorporate more of. Because I mean, for a band like us, it was we were kind of with World Upside Down, we were kind of at that point where we could have gone either way. Like, we could have gone more in a more melodic direction, we could have gone in a more metal direction, we could have gone, there's so many different ways that we kind of could have gone coming out of that, because there's so much influence in that record that this time we kind of honed in a little bit more on, okay, this is where we're at, this is what we've been doing. Now how do we approach this? And the ideal has always been like, we got to go harder, or try to go harder anyways. And I mean, with Face Down, the one thing that people keep saying is like, it sounds like Rust, but it's harder. And it's like, thank you. that's
I
what
mean,
we've been.
I was gonna say that's a huge key, especially as a growing band and someone that's growing within your own artistic ways, because you guys people are saying this sounds like Rust, but heavier. So it's like, this sounds like what we expect, what we want from you guys, what we know of you guys, but it's just evolving into something of a different artistic direction. But it's something that, it has the core that's Rust. It's like a Pokemon evolution. It's like you're going from Angry Charmander to Angry Charmeleon with this record. Who knows, by the next time you're going to go with like steroid up Charizard that's ready to smash and grab people and burn everyone to the fucking ground because he feels like it.
I mean, that would be ideal. I love hard music, and I want to, whenever I'm creating, my number one goal in creating is just, I want it to be hard. Like, I want people to be like, oh, okay. Like, he meant that shit.
I mean, on Face Down, you guys definitely hit it. So when the new record comes out, if you're saying this is even the best one, now you got me excited, man. I mean,
well, that's just my personal opinion. I mean, I'm sure if you ask the other three guys, I don't know what they would say, but I mean, there's one song in particular on the new record that I'm super stoked on, and it's definitely it's different than what we've done, but it's also everything that I kind of wanted to see come together in a song at the same time. So I'm really excited for, like, I'm particularly excited for people to hear that one and get some takes on that, because I feel like that's probably the one song where we branched out the most on. And I mean, I love Face Down. I think Face Down's a great song, but in my opinion, I think there's maybe one or two better songs.
Well, put it this way, who cares what the other guys say right now? Because we're talking to Rob, so it matters what Rob has to say.
Appreciate you.
And I got one more question before we wrap this up. It's something I started asking every guest I've had, and I'm making sure I ask you because you're going to be the perfect person to ask this question. So if you can, Rob, can you give me, I'm going to pick 3 out of this one. Can you pick 3 bands for me to recommend to me in the Canadian hardcore scene that we should all be checking out right now? I want to make sure that we get it from you so that we can put it out there in the world and be like, hey, this is what someone that's big in the Canadian hardcore scene right now thinks. These are 3 bands you should be listening to. If you don't know them right now, go and know them. So give me some good suggestions, man. I'm craving it.
All right. So I don't want anyone to get mad at me. So any of my friends that listen to this motherfucker only gave me 3. That's it.
I'll say I'm only giving you 3 because otherwise we're going to have like 20 or 30 and that's going to be like insanity. And I'm always going with 3. So we're going with 3.
All right. So you got Bad Bet from Hamilton. You got Fight on Sight from Hamilton. And then you've got Rockpile out of Sudbury.
Ooh, alrighty. So we've got 3 for everyone to check out right now. 3 to start supporting. And there are, trust me, plenty more. So don't stop at those 3, everybody. Start with those 3. and then go down the rabbit hole. Wait, start with 4. Make sure Russ is involved in that one as well.
All right. And then if you're into sludgy doom stuff, my boys in Ethereal Team got you covered. And then if you like some other hardcore stuff, my boys in Just Right got you covered.
They all got you covered. Well, Rob, I got to thank you for this podcast. And as we bring it to its conclusion, one thing I'd like to do is give my guest, which is you right now, a chance to say whatever you want to say, plug or plug, promote at the end of the show. So, my friend, the floor is yours.
Perfect. Number 1, support your scene, support your community. Start a band, start a zine, start taking pictures, start taking videos, start a podcast, start whatever you can do to help lift up your local scene and support your local scene as much as possible. Because without your local scene, you don't have the big bands. We all start somewhere. We all start, ground level. The more you promote your local scene, the more you help everybody come up. Rising tide raises all ships. So definitely support your scene. And I mean, if you want to check out Face Down at the same time, go ahead. And definitely, do a deep dive and check out as much music as you possibly can. That's about it. That's about all I got.
Well said. So now it's time for me to end this with 3 things. So yes, support your local scene. Rising tide raises all ships. And when it comes to Canadian hardcore scene, go and do a deep dive into it. Take Rob's 3 suggestions. And specifically when it comes to Rust, I got you guys covered. So go to the description of the podcast where it says find Rust online. You're going to find links for everything, for social media, for YouTube, for Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you consume music, wherever you can go support the band, wherever you can go find them play live shows. All of it's going to be down there for you to click and follow. All the links, labels. I'm doing all the hard work. You got to go and, just hit the follow button once after you hit the link and you're good to go. Also include Steel City Productions in there as well for the Instagram page because I want to make sure you guys support them as well because that's supporting Canadian hardcore right there. We got to do it, right? We're going to do it. We're going to do it. So now it's time for number 2. Rob, whenever I've guested the podcast, I enjoy the podcast. I tend to make a certain promise as a way to say, 1, thank you for being in the podcast. And secondly, I wish to continue to support the band any way I can. And of course, man, I got to support the Canadian hardcore scene any way I can. So this is what my promise is to you. It's not an if. Fuck saying if. If implies it might not happen. This is when. When implies this is gonna happen. We just don't have a day or time yet. When I get to see you perform live for the first time. And because I do live in the Midwest part of the United States, I do drive everywhere. So driving to Canada, a little bit far, but nothing I can't handle. When I get to see you perform live for the first time, I'm gonna do my best Liam Neeson impersonation from Taken. As I will look for you. I will pursue you. I will find you. I will say hi. And first round's on me.
Thank you, my brother.
You are very welcome. And now, 3rd, I cannot end this podcast by saying goodbye. That is way too final. I love talking to you, man. I want to talk to you again in the future. I'd love to have you back in the podcast. I'll promote the brand new release once it's ready to come out so we can talk all about it and support the Canadian hardcore scene. I got to make good on that promise too, man. So is this goodbye? Nope. This is. I'll see you later.
Yeah.
Well, folks, that's my interview with Rob from the band Rust, and now it's time for Kevin's final thoughts. So the main reason we brought on Rust, and we want to bring on even more of these bands, is because when the Northern talk about the Canadian hardcore scene, like they brought up as such a great thing. I'm like, I want to shed more light on this. I started listening to some of the music, and I'm not the biggest hardcore guy. I'm more of a metalcore, punk rock kind of guy. That's my thing. But this stuff is good, like really, really, really good. So I want to get to the bottom of it. And Rob was the perfect person to start with Steel City Productions, with everything that they're putting together, with everything they're cultivating for the hardcore scene in Canada, especially in the Ontario side of things. It just is the perfect way to look at it and think, you know what? This is how it's supposed to be. This is how you're supposed to build the scene. They took an opportunity, they found the energy, they ran with it, and they challenged, and they made it a place where people want to be, where you feel safe, where you feel comfortable. I want to be a part of this scene as much as possible. I mean, just think about it. How cool is that? Like, how cool is the stuff that they have done? How awesome is it that they've done all of this? They've created such a great scene where bands from all over Canada and even in the US as well are trying to become a part of this. This is where a lot of quality is going to come from. And this is where Canada has a chance to make a hardcore scene as popular and as strong as Australia's metal scene. Based on the way they're building it, based on the support they have behind it, and based upon the energy that's behind it. We're in the early stages of it right now, and I want to see it continue to grow. Heck, even at the end of this, after we done hit the record button, Rob and I had talked a little bit more, and I'm like, I kind of want to go see this live, man. I want to go see what this scene is like. So I looked up how far it is for me to drive from where I'm in Milwaukee to Hamilton, Ontario. It's about a 9-hour drive, and I'm like, shoot, when I went out to Blue Ridge this year, it took me 13 and a half to get out there. That ain't nothing for me. Well, we might actually make that happen. because I want to continue to shed light on this. And we had an idea. When they release their album or EP, I'm going to go to Hamilton. I'm going to see their release show because they're going to be doing a weekend thing, Friday, Saturday. I'm going to be at both shows. And then during the day on Saturday, all the bands in Canadian hardcore scene, like as they're playing, hopefully they can help me connect with them. I'm going to bring all my stuff and we're going to do live interviews supporting the Canadian hardcore scene. I mean, how cool is that? We got to support this scene. We got to show how great this stuff is. We're going to continue to do it here as well. Rob gave us 3 more bands to check out, and we're going to go to all 3 of them. We're going to bring them on the podcast, and we're going to make it happen. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Rob. We're going to help support the scene. This is how you build a scene, baby. When it comes to finding Rust online, when it comes to supporting Steel City Productions, go to script for the podcast, all links and labels for socials, for where you can stream music, where you can download their music, where you can watch their music videos, and where you can find them online, where you can find their shows, all going to be there for you. So make sure you follow along with them because Kevin told you so. Make sure to follow along with us on the Chord podcast as well. Links for Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram are in the bio as well. Also, make sure you hit subscribe to this podcast right down here on Facebook or hit the follow button on Spotify, Podcast, iHeartRadio, Amazon. Also, make sure you're hitting the like button on this video and on this episode as well to help push in the algorithm, help support the Canadian hardcore scene, help support music as well, help support our vision. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Rob. You're definitely coming back on the podcast. Hopefully in the live sense. On that note, that's good for you guys. Thank you for listening to the Chord Progression Podcast. My name is Kevin, and you guys know how I end every single one. Except for the big, healthy, and hearty. See ya!